Welcome to the Level Up Podcast, the show where we tell the truth about what it really takes to thrive in life and business. I'm Deanna Cassidy, and I'm here with my business partner, Huey John.
Hey fam.
And today we're going to dive into a spicy topic, entrepreneurship. It's not for everyone, and honestly, that's not an insult. It's a reality. We'll break down why some people are built for the startup life and why others are better off not jumping into the chaos of being your own boss. We're peeling back the be your own boss and talking about the messy, beautiful truth of entrepreneurship. And today we're going to focus on a few questions.
10 questions.
10, yeah, that's true. So the first one is, what's the biggest myth you think people believe about being an entrepreneur? Spoiler, it's not all about beach laptops and passive income.
Yeah, certainly not. So do you want me to start?
Sure.
Okay, so obviously I've had a chance to, go over this one in my head for a long time. And I think the whole term entrepreneurship, or just to be an entrepreneur, people tend to confuse it with being smart or being capable. I think for an entrepreneur, your whole job is to basically take something that doesn't exist, it only exists in your mind, and you have to create a reality out of it. So I'll use a bricks and mortar analogy. Just because someone gives you $10 billion does not necessarily mean you're going to make that bricks and mortar organization work.
True.
An entrepreneur has to have, I think, a certain amount of vision and a certain amount of almost a sixth sense, because you have to see things developing before they actually develop. You have to be able to plan something out in your mind and know that it's going to work probably about 95% of what you've planned out. And unless you're unable to do that, basically let your reality meet your vision, I think it's a daunting task. If anything less, I don't know if you're going to be able to get there, because again, the average person, they go to work and everything's done for them. They've got their seat there, they're told when to take lunch, they're told when to clock out at the end of the day. All the leaseholds are done for them by the company. All the zoning has been done for them by the company. The financing of the operation is done. As an entrepreneur, it's your job to actually put all that together and make it function, make it fly. So if that scares you, or if you can't sort of process that and actually implement it, then I just work. And there's nothing wrong with working if you're really good at it. You can work with an entrepreneurial spirit, help the company grow. Eventually you'll get rewarded for it, but it's a daunting task.
That's true. I think one of the biggest myths about entrepreneurship that I think about is just like everybody thinks, I'm going to be an entrepreneur, and then the next day it's going to be successful, or the next day you're going to just have it all come together.
Yeah.
And that's not generally reality, or it's not what I experienced.
You never thought that that's what it was going to be, though.
No, I didn't.
When you signed on. Yeah, no, I mean...
But I think that's what other people think.
Well, I'll be honest, it's cool as hell. I mean, it's sure. Super cool. I mean, but you have to like the risk. You have to enjoy, letting it all hang out there. There's no guarantees in this at all.
No.
And if you have something sort of special that other people, and by that I mean basically the ability to just, some call it luck, I like to call it sort of organized chaos. If you could actually, always end up on your feet, then chances are you're supposed to be an entrepreneur. But if the first sign of a strong wind hits you, then probably not for you.
True.
Yeah.
Organized chaos.
Organized
I like that.
chaos. Yeah, that's what it is.
That's what it is every day.
Absolutely.
So
I'm addicted. I love it.
Okay, so question 2.
Mm-hmm.
How do you know if you're really ready to be your own boss or if you just hate your job?
That's an interesting question because people always ask me, they say, well, why did you choose this path? And I was like, well, I didn't really choose this path. This path chose me. Yeah, you know the whole story. My folks and stuff. And, I could have gone to Harvard and that's when they decided to duck out. So, I was sort of on my own. And, the thing is that if you had really good choices at one point, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which I did up until I was 18. It's really pretty impossible to all of a sudden say, okay, I'm going to settle for a life of mediocrity.
True.
So the natural, and remember, I'm black, just so you guys know. And being an entrepreneur back then was not a fashionable thing. It was just like, where'd you go to school? What did you study? What do who do you work for? That was standard operating procedure, right? So, it took some time for the world to catch up to say, well, okay, you know what? This is actually a viable path for, a lot of people of different ethnicities. Like today, anyone can be an entrepreneur today.
Yeah,
right?
very true.
What about you? I ask you the same question. Like, sort of, how did you, decide you were ready, or what was the catalyst for you basically taking the plunge? Or was it me pushing you, say, come on, Dee?
Well, that's always a factor in there.
Yeah, probably.
No, but just when you're working for other people and you see that you're capable and you can do it, then why not do it for yourself?
Well, I just, for you, I mean, I'm not going to speak for you, but I felt you were terribly undervalued. Like, you're most of the companies, and they were really large corporate organizations, really high level jobs, but I never thought you were well compensated for your skill level, and you are super smart. You're one of the smartest people I've ever met. Well, and so for you not to actually go out there and do it for yourself,
exactly, then that's sort of the key, because I kept getting hit with the glass ceiling effect and all that stuff as well, right? So better to venture out and make it work.
Well, the thing that you miss that I don't lack is you don't really have the greed factor.
That's true.
And in the corporate world, you need the greed factor. You have to be greedy. Otherwise, no one's going to just offer it up. Right? That's good. Their job is to cut costs.
Not pay more.
Yeah. So it doesn't matter how good you are. They'll find a spot for you, but they'll basically try to,
But then keep you there.
They'll keep you. Yeah, but they'll keep you real low. They won't give you enough to leave.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
They will not give you enough to go. So, yeah, there's that.
Okay. So the third question is loving freedom and hating authority enough of a reason to start a business, or is it a recipe for disaster?
Well, okay, that's an interesting question, because as an entrepreneur, there's no freedom. I mean, like when you have a job,
Excuse me.
You okay?
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Want some water?
I'm okay.
Okay. When you have a job, all right, you get to clock out at a certain time. You get to go home to your family. You get to hang out with your friends on the weekend. When you're doing something like this, you're all in. I mean, if you're doing it effectively, this is not for the faint of heart. This is not, it's not like, well, I'm just gonna. I mean, I can go away. I can take trips. I can party. I suppose I could basically fly off to Ibiza if I chose.
You could.
But I don't, because I've got a commitment, I've got a responsibility. This is my responsibility. So, and this is what I chose. Like, I chose this. And when you make a decision in life, you have responsibilities, you have commitments. And you got to basically put that first. Like with our team, and our team is growing. We've just taken on this huge new project.
And the fact our team is in different time zones.
We have so many different.
Always
on call. Yeah, yeah. Like this week, we were basically talking to how many countries? 4 on one call,
Yeah.
right?
Yesterday.
And so, like
And then today, well, just one other country.
yeah, but no, but
So you're always
on
committed
call.
to
Yeah,
get back to people.
and if that's what you decide to do, then that's the choice you make. And you sacrifice until you get to a point, where the sacrifice, to me, it was worth it. To me, it's worth it. To a lot of people, though, it's not. And so I really think that's the decision everyone has to make for themselves. It's a personal decision.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the term freedom, I like it, but it's not necessarily what entrepreneurship's about in a certain regard.
I don't know if it's a realistic term in today's environment, because I mean, even a job requires so much of you. It's
True.
not like it was 30 years ago where you basically, if you had a 9 to 5, it literally was from 9 to 5.
And then you'd be clocking out.
Then you'd be clocking out. Be home by 7.
Well, I guess the freedom is I can choose when I do the work that I do throughout the course of the day.
Well, yeah, there's that. I mean, the
priorities.
Well, this freedom is your time is yours.
Yeah.
You don't have someone telling you when to be here, where to work from, what you can literally do what it is you want. Sorry, do.
You okay?
It's here and here.
Yeah.
So yeah, there is freedom. There definitely is a certain amount of freedom involved.
Okay. So.
But you still have to put in the work. I mean, the work has to get done.
You need the results.
Yeah.
You need things to happen in order for things to come together.
Well, the thing is with your own shop, if you don't do it, no one else is going to do it. If you have you work for a big company or an organization, they can basically pass on the work to someone else if you miss a day or you miss a week or you're on vacation. Here it's all you. So
exactly.
Okay.
Next question, number 4. What's one personality trait that makes somebody terrible at entrepreneurship and one that makes them great?
Okay. So I would say I'll answer this one and you answer the second one if you want.
Okay.
Is the inability to get along with others. Right?
Yeah.
If you are not able to play nicely with others and encourage others and sort of be part of the solution as opposed to part of the problem, you should not be an entrepreneur, because it requires so much level heading and a great deal of empathy and you have to have obviously persistence, resilience, all those great attributes as well. But I really think that if you have a hard time connecting and communicating with others and actually just being a decent human being, high character, high respect levels, patience and that sort of thing, because there's so much uncertainty in being an entrepreneur.
Yep.
And there's sometimes where it looks like you're I mean, I think it was Jeff Bezos or one of those super successful entrepreneurs that said most of an entrepreneur's job is putting out fires. And if you're the type that runs for the door and is panicked all the time, you're not helping, right?
Yeah.
A cool, calm, collected person basically will get through any situation. If you just take a step back, look at it objectively, you could basically figure out the best course of action to navigate.
Yeah.
But if you're not even a team player, if something does happen, if there is like some sort of issue or some sort of catastrophe, you're gonna basically be like putting gasoline on the fire. So
True. Okay, so what's one personality trait that makes somebody great at being an entrepreneur? So I think probably the most important asset that an entrepreneur person can have is somebody that's probably able to be fluid because their day is always changing
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
changing.
Fluidity. I totally agree because no, you're absolutely right because I mean it kind of goes hand in hand with the whole communicating with people, but fluidity. If you're not able to basically just no, you're absolutely right, and I've noticed that lately as well.
Yeah, and then just thinking about how our team is communicating now.
Yeah.
So when they present the issues or opportunities that we have, right?
Yeah, but it's taken a long time for us to get
Exactly.
a super
So
long time for us to get there.
So no matter how much you think you can plan your day or start your day out, you have to deal with all the other things that are the moving parts that get prioritized, and then you have to go back to whatever you were going to do.
Well, why do you think that is, though? Why do you think there is such fluidity with the team now? Like, it just seems like we're it's like almost like a dance that wasn't there before. There were so many. I remember just being on calls, and just like I don't want
painful.
Yeah.
You're like, I'd like to leave.
No, but it wasn't
so
us or was it them?
Well, maybe our approach has changed too.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to get at. Like, I think you get to a certain point where you just but I think you get to a point where you actually just believe what you're doing. So their response, I think, to anything you do in life, there's a certain amount of imposter syndrome at a certain point. I think we're past our imposter syndrome. I think we actually buy into our stuff.
Yeah.
So to speak.
I agree.
Because now it's kind of like, well, no, it's supposed to, like, it's easy. Like, there's no, I think we used to have this sort of nervous anticipation, almost childlike, trying to say, well, okay, let's figure this out. But now there just seems to be this, okay, well, if we do this, and what about if we do it?
Yeah, or let's try this with that project. Or stuff like that.
Yeah,
and even just the little issues that came up. It was like, okay, let's resolve it.
I think that's
how
something.
do we resolve it?
I think that's something that comes with time. I think if you've been in the battlegrounds long enough and you start, I believe what that is you start really believing in yourself. Like, I've always believed in myself. I'm not short on confidence, never have been.
No.
But to this extent, way more. And it's almost...
and I think it's because we have sorry to interject. I think it's because we have the right team.
Yeah, no, that has a lot to do with it.
Whereas we've been struggling to have the right team for an awful long time.
Oh, yeah.
Like, that's been the ongoing missing piece.
Well, at one point, we had a team that didn't communicate with me. They only spoke to you. They did not acknowledge me at all, which was, fine. But, hey, good luck getting things done,
Exactly.
So,
well, that's why we flipped the switch on all that. So we flipped all that.
Yeah.
And now there seems to be the right energy.
No, we have some nice synergies going on. Really, really nice synergies and some really wonderful things developing. So it's exciting.
It is. Yeah.
All right.
So question 5. What's the difference between somebody who wants to be an entrepreneur versus somebody who wants to post about it on Instagram?
Yeah, to be honest with you, there's not much of a difference. Both of them are motivated. I think what it really comes down to is, are you willing to do the work?
Right? And do all the crazy little steps that other people don't. Like, I think about all the things I do in the course of a day.
Yeah.
And some of them I don't want to do, but there's nobody else who's going to do them, so you do them so that you can get through it and understand it.
You have to be willing to connect the dots. I mean, that's the biggest thing. And whatever that is, like whatever your role is, I think for a lot of people, they look at us and, they see you basically doing what you do, and they wonder, well, what is it that Huey does? And it's totally complementary to what you do.
Yeah,
I can't do what I do unless you do what you do.
Yeah.
Like, and for the stuff that we've actually produced, it would probably take a team of 5 or 10, but and I don't think it was out of necessity. I think we just decided to learn everything we did. It was like, well, let's figure this out.
It's like, I want to understand it.
Yeah.
It was like the curiosity of understanding.
Yeah.
What we're doing so that we can talk about it intelligently.
Yeah.
And improve upon it.
But most people don't want to do that.
No.
They simply
They just want the results.
They want the results.
Or they want to be the entrepreneur,
But
not put any of the time into it.
Yeah, once you figure out how something works and you actually spend a bit of time doing it, it becomes pretty easy to do.
Mm-hmm.
You know? Like, it becomes pretty, okay, I got this, I know exactly what to do, and it's like cooking. You become better at it.
Yeah.
Right?
Over time. Okay, question 6. Should fear of failure stop somebody from starting a business, or is that fear actually a good sign?
Okay, you answer that, and then I'm going to answer it.
Okay, so for this question, I think that the fear of failure is actually a good sign, because that's a sign that you want to change something, even if you fail. I guess that's not the outcome people want to have, but
it's part of
I
it's
think
a
as long as
possibility,
you learn something from that failure, then you're better off.
Yeah. I think in terms of fear and fear of failure, there's certain studies that show basically our brains are wired to basically run away from, fight or flight. Yeah. And we are actually our best when we're afraid, because we're doing everything we need to do to survive, to be successful.
Yeah, everything's heightened.
Everything's heightened, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, there's this one doctor who basically does these great posts on Instagram, and she talks about how the brain is wired and so forth. I can't remember her name right off the bat, but fantastic post. And her one post basically said today that you should get rid of your plan B. Because if you have a plan B, you have a bigger chance of failing, because your brain is wired. You're giving yourself an out. You're giving yourself
option two.
You cannot do that as an entrepreneur, right? And that heightened sense of, call it fear, call it desire, call it motivation, is actually what takes you across the finish line, right? I think, for me, I've never been afraid of failure, because I, coming from where I came from, I was, wasn't like, I had super amount of options after 18, and everything was so great, but I was happy. Like I'm a happy guy.
Yeah.
Like I'm able to basically look at most things in life, process it, and say that's important, that's not. That's the way to do something, that's not. If I do this, this is going to take me here. Right? So I'm in my right space, because I know for myself that my personality, just I guess my sort of my makeup, and yours as well to a large extent, I've noticed, is not conducive for just working for someone else.
True.
Yeah, I think you have to be somewhat fragmented. I think you have to be somewhat of a follower. I think you have to be malleable to be a good employee. I'm none of those things.
Yeah.
So it's like I said, I didn't choose to be an entrepreneur. It kind of chose me. It was kind of like, unless you want to be, kicked on, stepped on, because, I was texting a friend and basically just said, people who have more going on, they will always get the brunt of everybody else's disgruntled or unhappy or judgments, because it pisses people off to see that you're actually in a good way.
Yeah.
Right? They're going to make it their life. You're doing something different. You're thinking differently. You're comfortable. And if I'm not, it's going to irk me. Therefore, if I'm your boss and I've got control over you,
yeah, you're going to push this.
I'm going to be like, well, why are you so happy?
Yeah.
I make, what do you got to be happy about? What are you after my job? What's the angle here?
Yeah.
I'll show you got to be happy about. And I've experienced a lot of that over my life. So.
Goodness.
Okay.
Okay, question 7. What's a glamorous part of entrepreneurship that's actually the worst in real life? Wow, that's an interesting question.
Yeah, did Chad come up with that?
Chat did.
I don't understand the question. What's a glamorous part of entrepreneurship that's actually the worst in real life?
Yeah. Well, what would be a glamorous part of entrepreneurship?
Yeah, but what would be bad about being glamorous?
So anyway, this is a bad question
Yeah,
for you
let's.
and I,
You know
because
what?
neither one of us can answer
I
it.
think we'll skip that one.
So if anybody else would like to answer it,
Yeah,
you can
you
write
feel
into
free.
us.
Feel free.
So sorry about that. We didn't pre-screen anything because we like to be spontaneous about this.
Well,
so.
yeah. You don't want to sound reversed.
No. So anyway, on to question 8.
Mm-hmm.
Is it smarter to be the number 2 person at a great company than the number 1 at a struggling startup?
Okay, you want to answer that, or should I?
Well, yeah, I guess go ahead and answer.
Okay, so here's the thing, right? If you're number 2, you'll always have a boss.
Correct.
And if you're number 1, you'll always have a chance.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So this is sort of where you separate the wheat from the chaff. Like, not everybody is capable of, what's the word for people who turn anything into gold? Alchemy.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You almost have to be a magician.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're taking something that's not there. You're taking the unknown. Like, just recently, I saw a story about the fella, from FedEx, who founded FedEx, and he recently passed away. Rest in peace. Today, actually. And there was an interesting story they put out that, many years ago, the company was down to $5,000. He went to Las Vegas, he gambled it. I'm not sure if he won or not. I believe he might have. But that story, to me, exemplifies entrepreneurial spirit.
Yeah.
Here was a guy that basically, and at that point, the company was pretty big, right? It was fairly large at that point, right? But here was a guy that basically just took a shot.
Mm-hmm.
And literally, it was like, make it or break it. He basically he said, caution to the wind. I'm going to basically see how this lands. And he ended up making it one of the largest distribution companies in the entire world.
Yeah. So
right?
It paid off.
It paid off. And
I'm sure it was not comfortable at the time.
But that's the whole point. I mean, I don't think it was the most responsible move at the time, but he had the wherewithal to basically have that attitude, and you needed that attitude to dig him out of where he was, to get forward. If you didn't, most people would have been cowering. Well, I have $5,000 and I can't.
What do I do with it?
He basically freed himself.
Or I'll go get a loan.
Or well, you make the worst decisions when you're under duress. You make bad decisions. Desperate decisions are the worst decisions you can make. So if you could actually free yourself from ever feeling desperate, there was a post I saw somewhere, and it basically just said, 100 years from now, none of this is going to matter, right? And so when you think about it like that, it's going to be a generation from now. Everyone you know is probably going to be dead, right? Not to be fatalistic, but it's true. They're just not going to be around. It's reality, right? So how much bad stuff could you really do in your time? And so what that says to me is basically, if you do have a challenge or you're up against something, as long as it's not life or death, you deal with it. Go on. This tomorrow's gonna come. You're gonna be here. Take a chance. Take a risk. There is no wrong answer.
Yeah.
There's no wrong answer. Only in school there's a right and wrong answers. But in real life, what you do is just cause and effect. So if you make a choice on doing something, like sometimes you and I basically get into disagreements or whatever, I'm never worried about it, because either way, I look at our history and where we are today compared to where we were 20 years ago, and I'm like, we're way ahead of the game. So
True.
Yeah, I'm like, you want to disagree with me now? I know you're going to be fine. I'm going to be fine.
Yeah.
Because the momentum was always in a forward trajectory. So as long as you know you're living in that, if you're basically hitting a brick wall every day, then you're going to have a problem, because if you make the wrong decision, it's probably going to end up costing you big time. But if for the most part your momentum is positive and things work out and people say yes to you, and slow, steady growth. Not every day is going to be perfect, but as long as you're showing up, look at your last 6 years. That's going to determine your next 6 years.
Mm-hmm. True.
Right?
I guess my quick answer for that question is, from my experience and what I've gone through, it would be better to be number one in entrepreneurship as opposed to number two in a company.
Absolutely.
Just because I've always hit conflict and always been kept down.
Yeah.
So I, even if you were paying me, I don't know, some exorbitant amount of money, like $500,000, something like that, you'd still have to deal with the person above you.
As long as you have a boss, you'll never be free. As long as you have someone working above you, you will always be on someone else's clock.
Yeah.
And if you're basically number two, you could bet you working your booty off for whatever they're paying you. You are, they're not just giving you money because they like you. No, you're
expected.
It's not a happy life at number one. Sorry, at number one it's happy because they get to make decisions. At number two, you're earning every dollar. Yeah.
Okay, question 9. Can you be too nice to be a successful entrepreneur? Let's talk boundaries, decisions, and saying no.
Okay, can you be too nice? I think that's an interesting question because, in my opinion, I don't think so today. I think you're actually expected to be nice. I think 30 years ago you were expected to be a total, boss.
Yeah.
let's try to be PG here.
Yes, that's why I looked at you, because I was like, what? I can't say the word I was thinking.
Yeah, I think that was the status quo. But when I say nice, I don't mean a pushover.
No, but
I think
there's no reason not to be polite and not to be professional and to do all those things.
I think you could do that today.
Yeah.
I think actually it's expected of you. With social media and bad behavior being brought to the, forefront like that, I think, if you're going around and, treating people badly or just doing really awful, stupid things, you're going to be found out real quick. And there goes your equity. That goes real. That's the quickest thing to go, because once people basically find out that you're not, someone of character, someone who just is on the level, you're not going to be an entrepreneur, because those are the basic traits for entrepreneurship, for influencers, for brands. Is you have to have integrity. You have to be a good person. You can't lie to people. You can't go around abusing people. You cannot do that stuff. Right? It's not in the cards anymore. Bad behavior is not rewarded today. So.
True.
Anyway, what's your? Oh, one more question?
Oh yeah, sorry. There's one more question. What advice would you give to somebody romanticizing entrepreneurship but struggling to follow through on one idea?
Okay. Well, I think if you're romanticizing about entrepreneurship, you should really consider not becoming an entrepreneur, because there's nothing really romantic about it.
No, it's a lot of hard work, actually.
It's a lot of hard work, but I think there's a certain mindset of people that should be entrepreneurs, and most of them are like, you're really smart. You're a really smart woman, right? And your mind works very, very quickly, right? I would say for you could romanticize a bit more. Right? Because you're very, it's sort of cut and dry and sort of fix everything fits together. I think you could be a bit more lofty, a bit more, dream a bit more, push for a bit more. See, I push for everything, the lofty goals, but yet I have a way to get it. Like, it's not just, I don't just sit there and go, oh, I'd like this.
Yeah, well,
I know exactly how the pieces have to fit together.
Exactly. And you're a very talented salesperson. So.
Yeah, well, that's my, that's sales.
So you got a strength that not everybody has.
Well, let's just add one more comment. If you can't sell, then you really should never be an entrepreneur. Because, people think that basically you have this great idea and all of a sudden you're going to make hundreds of millions of dollars because of this great idea, but they don't realize you actually have to have somebody to sell that great idea. Like, everything needs sales, like, it doesn't matter how fantastic of an idea you have or
how
product,
great that
or
product
how,
is.
no, if you can't sell it and scale your sales and build a team to sell it, so you to
then
the
you're
point
stuck.
where you're just who's gonna basically keep the lights on? That's sales that actually drive, so
Allows you to grow.
my goal is to basically sell $1 billion worth of 3 different companies each over the next 5 years. Maybe 10 years it'll probably take. There's no rush, but I love sales, and if I could basically figure out how to do it with the internet, it's pretty simple.
Well, it's
That's
helping.
the goal.
It's making it a lot easier.
Well,
you
yeah,
have more resources.
Well, look at that company you were talking about that we wrote the blog on the weekend, where basically he had an 8-man team and they went from 0 to 80 million in 6 months.
Yeah, they developed the app and sold it for $80 million.
And and there's this other company,
Base 44.
Base 44. Yeah. Actually, you could see them. They're all over. They're doing internet ads all over the place. Yeah, so it's the codeless programming, I guess. But there's so much stuff out there. There's so many wonderful opportunities that really, I think today, if somebody really has a good idea out there and it's tech based or anything,
It
really,
could be anything.
even biotech or
Could
everything.
be anything, as long as it's a better product or a different spin on that product.
Then you go and you basically work it from the ground up. You figure it out, and you basically just create a website, create a marketing plan, get a team. Your team is the most important thing to being a good entrepreneur. If you don't have a good team, you're like you're
Because
dead
we
in the
can't
water.
all do everything.
No.
So we need to pull on other people that have other skill
Other
sets.
people's strengths, 100%. But no, that was I forgot. Need to add that to your team. Okay, we gotta keep.
Oh, sorry, my quick response, because we're running out of time and we're trying to stay on point, is for somebody struggling to follow through in one idea, I think I would suggest that they either write down all their ideas, because you can go down the rabbit hole with them or not get anything done, and then pick one that makes the most sense at that point in time and roll that out. Because if you do a whole bunch of half-baked ideas, nothing ever finishes the whole cycle.
Yeah. Jack of all trades, master of none. Yeah, for sure.
So that's
Stay
my
focused.
thought. Or find yourself a mentor or something.
Yeah. A mentor could generally hone you in and really get you focused on, on one thing, which is important if you're going to be an entrepreneur. You have to be focused. You have to,
Because you can get sidetracked pretty
so easily.
Very easily.
No, focus it's so important.
Okay. Any other questions or any other thoughts before I wrap it up?
No, I like this one.
Okay.
I like this one. This one was good.
I thought it was okay, other than I just hit my head against this. But
that's
anyway,
okay. It wasn't on camera.
That. Okay, good.
It probably was.
It was.
Okay.
Anyway.
Well, thanks, guys.
Yeah.
Thanks for checking out number 3.
Yeah.
And
oh, hang on. So, that's fine. So I was just going to recap and say thanks for hanging out with us today. Huey already beat me to the punch because he's quick.
Yeah.
And so if you ever felt the pull towards entrepreneurship or felt guilty for not pursuing it, I hope this episode gave you some clarity, because the truth is not everybody should start a business, and not everybody who does will love it. So that doesn't make you less ambitious. It makes you more self-aware, and that's power. So if you loved this episode, hit subscribe and share it with a friend or leave a review. Until next time, honor your path and don't fall for the hype. And that's it. Till
Thanks,
next
guys.
time.
Yeah, till next time.
Take care.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.